algorithmic bias can present itself in the form of gender bias, racial prejudice, and even age discrimination.
Some users complained that the automatic system had a preference towards showing pictures of white people in previews of tweets.
How does a big social media platform like this stop disinformation before it gets to you?
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm happy to be here with Dr. Sahar Joakim, an assistant professor of philosophy at the St. Louis Community College in Merrimack, with expertise in exploring philosophical and ethical issues in contemporary society. So today we'll be discussing the issues of algorithmic bias especially in social media, which with the election coming up in the US is especially a critical topic. So first of all, I just want to ask you, do you have any experiences with social media algorithm biases in real life?
Experiences, yes. I mean, we all do. It's just a matter if you realize that you have those experiences. If you're on any social media platform, then you have experiences with algorithms affecting what you see, how often you see it, as far as like the content. So yes would be the very simple answer, because we all do.
Yeah, I think that's really important to point out, because a lot of people who are on the consuming end, I know that you're a YouTuber, so obviously you know it from the creator's end, but from the consumer's end, we also experience that bias in our algorithm of what content we're being fed. So the next thing I wanted to ask you is kind of how can we apply philosophy to the issue of algorithmic biases in social media?
As someone creating content, I have to deal with those biases because it makes sense for me, for example, not to post content on a Friday afternoon. It makes more sense for me to wait until a Monday afternoon, because on the weekend, there'll be a ton of people posting all sorts of things all over the internet. And so the likelihood that what I post on a Friday is seen is much lower. So as a YouTube creator or someone who posts onto this large web of information, if I want what I create to be seen, I shouldn't be posting it when everybody and their mom is posting things. I should wait for there to be less traffic. When I'm on the consuming end, that's not something I'm thinking about. I'm bored. It's Friday. The night hasn't started, but the day is pretty much over. I grab my phone. I go onto X or Facebook or TikTok or just like literally any social media platform, and I'm scrolling through my feed. I'm not thinking about the person creating the content and whether they thought about when I might likely see their content. So are algorithms affecting us? Yes, they're affecting everybody. Do we have experience with them? Yes. Anybody who's on the internet, even if you're on Google searching for something, it's almost this exact same algorithm structure as social media. When you get onto Google and you search for something, similarly, when you get onto Facebook and just hit home, what you see as the top 5-10 hits has been determined by an algorithm that is programmed to study things in the recent past. And then different social media platforms use different databases. So like Twitter, for example, will look at what has been looked at by a lot of people. And if a lot of people are looking at it, then they show it more. So then when you go into X, then you're more likely to see it because so many people have seen it. Well, then the ethical question here is, does what is popular matter to what is the truth? Going into an election year, like you said, should we think that something is true because more people think it's true? What's that connection between the masses, popularity, and then the actual truth? What is truth? Who determines truth? Is the truth subjective? Is it relativistic? Is it objective? Should we have a say in the truth? Is the truth something like math? We don't care what color your skin is. We don't care about your sexual orientation. 1 + 1 is 2 for your great grandma and your great daughter? Or is ethics not like math? Is ethics like style? What was true or stylish for your great grandma is not going to be the style or the truth, the way to live for your great granddaughter.
Yeah, no, I think the most critical point there was the thing about the election. What's most popular isn't the truth. And also, you can kind of create an echo chamber where you're kind of consuming content and you're getting that same content being reflected back at you. So then you kind of get this view of the world very pointed in a certain direction, which can be really dangerous, especially with elections and stuff like that going on. Maybe from a philosophical or ethical standpoint, how should we approach the issue of echo chambers? Is it inherently problematic, or is it just reflecting human nature?
That's good. So you're giving me the question in a binary. Is it problematic or is it nature? It's complicated. It could be our natural way of psychologically interpreting the world to want to be in the crowd and to say what everyone else is saying. And it might also be bad that we are physiologically, chemically, biologically, socially, like all these ways, naturally geared or engineered to want to say what other people are saying. And there's a whole rabbit hole we can go down there as well. Let's start with what an echo chamber is. You can imagine that if you're in a cave and you make a noise, you can hear the noise that you made. So if you go, whoo, right? Sometimes you feel like you hear it come back at you. Whoo, whoo, whoo.
Yeah.
This is how bats and creatures like bats actually view the world, is through these screeches that bats make and through echolocation, echo, like with sound. This is how they see. So bats make a noise, and then when the vibrations coming out of them hits a surface, it comes back, and then they interpret that and they go, oh, there's a thing there. So then I'll fly in a different direction. Human beings can live in what we call now echo chambers, which is a scenario in which you're metaphorically in a space where the things you say come back right to you. And this is the idea of a safe space. In a safe space, whatever you say, whatever you believe is affirmed. So nobody's supposed to challenge you or judge you or tell you, no, what you believe about yourself is wrong. In a safe space, whatever you say will be affirmed. That's the idea of a safe space. So it's like an echo chamber. If you say, I'm a girl, somebody will never say like, no, you're not. It's an echo chamber. So here's the idea, zooming out, bringing in ethical questions. When you are told by someone that the oven is hot, you should just say, the oven is hot. You shouldn't challenge it. You shouldn't test it. You should say, no, the oven's not hot. Let me touch it and show you that it's not hot. And then in theory, you get burned, because whoever told you the oven is hot is likely not trying to manipulate you, but rather trying to help you. If somebody said that berry is poisonous, you shouldn't eat the berry as like a scientific experiment. You should just not eat the berry. And so evolutionarily speaking, chemically, biologically, physiologically, socially, psychologically, human beings are social animals. We don't each need to eat the berry. Somebody eats the berry and dies. Somebody stays alive to say, hey, everybody, don't eat that berry. And then we all go, don't eat the berry, don't eat the berry, don't eat the berry, don't eat the berry. And then that gets passed down. So is it a natural thing or a bad thing that we're in echo chambers? It's a natural thing. We want to learn from other people's mistakes. We want to fit in. We don't want to be the ostracized one who's marginalized, cast out, the black sheep. So if everybody's wearing green and red around Christmas, we don't even have to be Christian. We just like get in the holiday spirit because we want to be this like pack animal. Here's when it gets dangerous, when the thing everybody is doing is actually harmful and everyone has a natural reason to do it anyway. Think about the Holocaust. If you were in Austria, or in more popularly, if you were in Germany and somebody said, that's a Jew, kill the Jew, you would get into at least social trouble, if not legal and physical trouble, if you said, wait a minute, why would we go and get the Jew? Why don't we just leave that person alone? Well, if everybody's doing it and you're the only one who's not, you are the one who's going to get penalized. Again, maybe socially, maybe we just stop talking to you. Maybe we cancel you if you're the only one saying the opposite thing. Holocaust aside, think about slavery. If everybody in the neighborhood owns a slave, the person who says, wait a minute, what are we doing, you guys? That's the one who's going to be at least marginalized or ostracized, if not killed, to be censored. And then we saw this very recently with COVID. If everybody's talking about follow the science, get vaccinated, get the second one, get the third one, and then even if you have a PhD, even if you studied mRNA, even if you're the minority saying, hold on, guys, maybe we shouldn't be vaccinating, you will be canceled, you will lose your license, you will be censored. And so we see this throughout history, but also today. So bringing it back to the election, if everybody on the internet seems to be saying that Trump is a monster, which is what I get in my feed, probably because of my algorithms, then I would not be retweeted, reposted, shared, re-exed. I don't know how to quite say that. If I said, wait a minute, guys, what about his amazing, environmental policies? What about his amazing policies? Well, that's not something that the algorithm is going to understand and then repost. So it brings us down to this question about the relationship between what's popular and what's true. We have a long history of thinking that what's popular is true. If we've been doing it this way, it must be right. If this is the tradition, it must be right. Now, in logic, there's a logical fallacy. A fallacy is a way you ought not to reason. And the fallacy is called appeal to authority, sometimes appeal to tradition. And the fallacy is that you're claiming that something is correct or true only because that is what has been done historically or traditionally. And it's a fallacy because people have been wrong, or masses have been wrong, assuming you think things like the Holocaust are wrong and slavery is wrong, or giving out a vaccine to every single person and their child, even though it hasn't been tested at all, is wrong. If you think these things are wrong, then we're in big trouble living in echo chambers where our algorithms are programmed to repost, reshare, show us more and more of the same thing because we are wired to believe that if everyone believes it, it must be true.
First of all, those are like incredible points. I didn't even think of half of those before in my life. I really wanted to go into that idea of censorship that you mentioned with the doctors and everyone. That's like kind of a big thing right now, obviously, because freedom of speech, but also like censorship algorithms. Obviously, it's wrong, but I think some people might argue that algorithm, their job is kind of to prioritize what's popular or what would be good for the user. So like, how do we deal with that? Censorship versus the job of the algorithm.
Good. This is really complex. So let's start with an analogy that's a little bit easier to understand, and then we can go back to like the technology version of it and try to grapple with that. Say that you're a parent. You're a parent and you have a child, and this child is very new to the world. Like babies come out breathing air for the first time, right? And feeling oxygen around their bodies, and the pressure is all different from everything they've known. And then they have to learn how to use their arms and legs, and then they have to learn how to use language, words, and you're programming that child. Why do you speak English? Because your parents speak English. Why do you speak Spanish? Because your parents speak Spanish. Why do you take your shoes off at the door without thinking? Because your parents are likely Asian, and that is the culture. Whatever culture your parents have, they're teaching you, they're ingraining you, they're indoctrinating you, they're programming you, however you want to put it. Like you will see your parents' traits in you unless you work really hard to undo that, which you can. We have neuroplasticity of the brain. You can rewire your brain, your habits. You can get a whole new life. You can go from being introverted to extroverted or terrible at math to good at math. Like we can become new people. It's really wonderful what humans can do. But unless you pause and become really intentional about your own programming, You are who your environment shapes you to be. And for many of us, that means at least one parent or guardian teaching us a language, putting the spoon in the right hand. We become right-handed even if we were otherwise born left-handed. Like we are programmed by programmers. You're programming this child, and there is like a really bad thing everybody is doing around you. Say it's slavery. Why would you teach your kid about slavery, about the idea that some beings are less valuable and therefore people like you and me get to use them like objects and not pay them, not respect them, not give them the ability to govern themselves, the idea of autonomy? If you thought that slavery was wrong, you wouldn't teach your kid the fundamental principles that lead to slavery. If you didn't believe in modern science, you wouldn't vaccinate your kids. If you thought it was unethical to eat meat, you wouldn't feed your kid meat. If you thought soda was literally poison, you wouldn't give your kid poison. I mean, you wouldn't give your kid soda. Like you would just program your child to live the way you want to be lived, to live. And that's censorship. Like that's literally censorship. It's for their own good. If you're the parent raising a child, there are things that you believe, that you have judgments about the world. If you think soda is bad, you're going to program that kid to think soda is bad. You are censoring their perception of the world. You are limiting what they are interested in. So presumably when they go to somebody else's house and the guardian there is like, hey, do you want milk or do you want soda or do you want, like, what do you want? Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, root beer, Mountain Dew, orange Fanta? Your kid is more likely to be like, do you just have water? Because I just drink water. Like water is my thing. I just like water. And they don't know that there's all these other options. Well, the parent is censoring and guiding that child. The job of the parent is to do what's best, in theory, for that child and to give them the content that's best for that child according to what they know. If your parents didn't know about the complexities of menstrual cycles and how eggs travel out of the ovaries, then they're just going to tell you don't have sex ever because you can get pregnant. But if they understand, the complexities of the typically women created physical bodies, then they can give you these like nuances like, well, okay, technically you've got like a week and a half where you can't get pregnant. So don't do it just in case. But if you're going to do it right, like they can teach you more. The more knowledge your parents have, the better they can censor the bad information out and the good in. Okay. The algorithm is just trying to do what it's programmed to do, which for a social media website would be to generate attention. It's a attention pumping machine. And its job is to get you, the user, to look at as much content as long as possible, period. And so based on what it thinks is going to get you to do that, that's its job. Now, if we program the algorithm to give you violence because you're more likely to look at violence for a longer time because it just draws you in, then that's what it's going to do. Based on its knowledge of what you like. And so we can go on a tangent here about like data mining and what you like versus what you should like. But if the algorithm isn't taught the difference between love and war, and it's just taught that people look at war more than they look at people high-fiving each other, and it's programmed to want to generate you looking at content, the more content and the longer, and it's like watching your eyes, and it knows when you blink, and it knows how long you looked at it, and it knows what side of the page you're looking at, and all of these pieces of information that it can gather about you. you are being censored by a program that is programmed to get your attention no matter what you're attending to. And then the philosophical questions here are, how should we be programming these algorithms? Who should be programming these algorithms? Do we know what's best? Because if a mom or a parental figure doesn't know what's best, they're going to take away options so that you can't choose. They're going to censor you. They are going to program you. If an algorithm isn't taught that war is bad, killing is bad, rape is bad, they just know that like these blockbuster hits, they get more attention when there's more murder in them, then that's what they're going to perpetuate.
I kind of think also the issue there is that you can't really show a user everything. Like you can't show them every video on the internet. So like obviously you're gonna have to be like, okay, these are the top results on Google search, or like these are like the like hot topics for watchers who watch the same things as you or consumers or whatever. So that's kind of where that question comes into play. But yeah, I think your analogy of the parent and the child was really useful here and really quick thinking also, because like, wow, do you have any kind of last thoughts to share or anything?
Something that people are not thinking about is the future. When the telephone first came out, everyone was just like, holy cow, we can talk to each other even if we don't travel an hour by foot or horse to get to each other or whatever. And, you know, when the computer came out, I remember me getting on AOL, Instant Messenger, and like making, okay, it was just like new technology comes out. Everybody is either freaking out because they think it's going to replace their jobs, right? Math teachers thinking the calculator is going to get them fired, or everyone's freaking out because the technology is so cool and we're just like trying to learn it, trying to use it, trying to manipulate it, trying to make sure that America's AI is faster, better than China. And there's like all these different ways that we can go. There's the ethicists that are like, wait a minute, there's slave labor in the cobalt mines in Africa, and maybe the only reason we want to help Taiwan against China is because they've got the chips we need. And there's like all these directions we can go, but everyone's so excited about what's happening now because it's cutting edge. And artificial intelligence, I think, suffers from that very same concern, is that we're so deep in what's happening right now and trying to grapple with it and trying to apply ethics to it, which I'm so sorry we didn't like get into, but we could definitely go into like normative theories and explain what they are and then apply them to what we're doing and then ask like, is what we're doing ethical? But who's thinking about the future? Here's my point. Right now, everything you're doing on the internet with a smartphone is being harvested. Every Google search you make is saved somewhere. How long you looked at it is saved somewhere. The social media platforms you have, the photos that you've posted, the things that you've liked, the things that you've shared, everything is somewhere in an invisible cloud that you don't think about because you don't see, you're not faced with it. But say that you've liked KKK jokes or slavery jokes or torture jokes. You liking those things is saved somewhere. So say that you love guns and you've shared it and whatever, or you love things that are politically left or things that are politically right or things that are socialist or things that are anti-American or things that are anti-potatoes or anti-McDonald's. It could be anything. Think about all the food you've ordered online. Think about all the things you've bought online. Think about everything you've done online. Think about all your text messages, all those jokes about like, you know, let's just move to Canada, or, oh, I wish she would die. Everything you've ever done on your smartphone or laptop, it's all saved somewhere. Right now, a lot of it's encrypted. Right now, you have passwords. And so I can't log into your Instagram to see all the messages you've sent that are about blank. Right now, you're using WhatsApp. And so I can't look at your text messages. Right now, we have passwords, we have encryptions, our data is like behind paywalls. But think about all those like long things you've scrolled over and then you said, I consent, just let me use the thing. Okay. One day, those algorithms, and there's two kinds, will be able to be hacked by quantum mechanisms. And then all the chips you've ever bought on your credit card can be categorized and bought by an insurance company. Well, you're probably safe for like the next few years because we don't have the amount of energy that it requires to run big quantum computers that would be able to hack these systems and break the encryption and then gather all the data. But your data is being saved somewhere. Like right now, a company can go through everything you've ever bought on your credit card and then categorize it and see how much you spend on junk food. Well, what happens when the insurance companies buy that information? Or what happens when the flight when the flight companies buy the amount of times you've clicked on a hot Asian guy as opposed to a hot Persian guy or whatever, and then they start marketing you tickets to Asian countries more expensive because they know if you're going to travel, you'd go there, not to Iran, because like that's what you interact with, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so what I think we are not thinking about, but should be, is the future technology that's going to make what we can do now look like child's play. What happens 70 years from now when the hospital can see everything, right? Okay, so that's like the kind of thing I think we're not thinking about. Bias, for sure, that's important. Discrimination, for sure, that's important. But what about when someone can literally look at every data we've ever interacted with in a really fast-paced environment?
No, yeah, that's really important to think about. Like you're kind of, I forgot the term, like digital footprint. Like it's very, very permanent. It's very out there. Even if you have a private account or you only have a certain amount of followers, like everyone sees everything, passwords, everything. Your point about quantum, like hacking, I'm not really familiar with that world, but yeah, that's incredibly important to think about in the future. Yeah, unless you have anything else to add.
So much, but we can talk for hours. There's so much here.
Thank you so much for coming. I feel like I've just learned so much I didn't even realize.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much.